Hey everyone, in this video I want to take a look at how you can secure a Linux system, specifically a Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 system with two-factor authentication. And we're going to focus on securing local logins. So that would be like your GUI login or your general command line interface logins. You can also do SSH, and that's usually where you'd want to do it. But for this demo, I really want to focus on GUI logins in particular. So what we're going to use is Duo. So Duo has a module called PAM Duo, and they're, just in case you're wondering what Duo is, they're a two-factor authentication provider. They're now owned by Cisco, and they provide 2FA for all kinds of different devices, operating systems, applications, and one of those happens to be Unixes and Linuxes. What I like about Duo, and there's plenty of two-factor authentication options out there. There's Google Authenticator, for instance. What I like about Duo is that if you have the app installed on your phone, you can set it up to just send you a nice push notification, and you just basically press either the green check mark or the red X to either allow or deny authentication, or not even, well, yeah, authentication, but it could be like a login authentication, or it could be like pseudo authentication, where a user is trying to do something as a super user. So it's much easier, at least in my opinion, than Google Authenticator, where you have 30 seconds to enter a 6-digit PIN, and you have to kind of type carefully but quickly because you're on a timer and it's going to expire maybe in a few seconds, and you have to decide whether you need to wait another 3 or 4 seconds for it to generate a new code before you enter that code. You might know that song and dance. So that's what I like about Duo. None of that. It's just a push notification, and when you open the notification, it gives you 2 buttons to press. Very nice. So to get started with Duo, it is free for a pretty limited account. You can just set it up for free. So you'd want to, let's show the documentation first, and then we'll look at how you kind of get the Duo end of things configured before we actually go in and configure Linux. So step 1 is probably to grab the documentation, and for what we're demonstrating, the best URL to browse to is duo.com/docs/duo-unix, and this is geared toward SSH, but you can use a lot of the information in here for what we're going to demonstrate, which is two-factor authentication for local logins and for sudo. So this is really the best documentation, and they do have other pages if you consult your search engine surrounding the use of the PAM Duo module. So pull this up, and the next thing you want to pull up is the actual administrative console. So go ahead and basically set up an account, a free account. You're limited to, I think, 10 users, but it's free, so it's kind of nice. Install the application on your phone, and the last step is you want to go to Applications through the Duo console and click Protect an Application right here, and you want to make a Unix application. I'm not going to click on it because it's got some like secret keys and integration keys and so forth, but when you make the application, you'll be given that information. It's pretty much front and center when you open it up, and you need those bits of information to properly configure two-factor authentication. So with your account set up, with your app installed, and with your documentation ready to go, you can now start the actual process of installing Duo and configuring it. So I'm going to, I don't want to close the screen necessarily, but it's kind of annoying because this desktop environment doesn't really allow you to minimize. So I'm just going to make it really small and put it behind my head. And let's open up a terminal, make it a little bit larger. And step 1, we have to actually install the repositories so that we can then install Duo. So to install the repositories, you have to make, on Red Hat systems, you have to make a .repo file, essentially. If I go into Documents, I've actually made 2 files. This is my Duo configuration, and this is my repository configuration. So if we cat out Duo security, the file is pretty basic. It's got the name of the repository, the URL, this is a Red Hat system, /r, whatever our release version is, /our base architecture. We want to enable this repository, and we also want to do a GPG check. So we want to do some cryptographic verification of any applications that we install. So we make this document, and I typed it out beforehand just so you didn't have to watch me type it, but you could just as easily do like a vim or a nano /etc yum.repos.d/duosecurity.repo and just make the file directly in the appropriate directory. But I've already typed this out, so what I'm going to do is sudo cp duosecurity.repo etc yum.repos.d, and that's it. Wonderful. And if I do a quick ls of yum.repos.d, there is our Duo security repo. But we did enable that GPG check, so we have to make sure that we have the appropriate public key installed. To do that, we can do a sudo rpm-import https duo.com duo-gpg dash public dash key. I did like take notes on these types of things because if you're wondering if I remembered all that, the answer would be no. So we're going to import that GPG key, and now we can actually, with our repository set up and the GPG key imported, we can actually do the installation. So I'm going to say sudo yum or DNF install duo_Unix. And it's going to reach out to that Duo repository and grab the package and install it. So with that installed, we can now start the configuration process. And let's just get the PAM configuration out of the way, because that's the most nerve-wracking part. PAM, the pluggable authentication module, it's very useful. It allows you to authenticate using a number of different modules that are sort of pluggable, right? You can kind of add them and remove them. So it gives us a lot of flexibility, and the name is kind of self-explanatory, I guess. The downside of PAM, or the reason that it kind of makes me nervous personally, is that if you break a configuration, you misconfigure something, you could potentially just lock yourself out of the system and completely break authentication system-wide. So you kind of have to be careful and triple check any changes that you make to your PAM configuration files. Just a little heads up. You might even want to back them up. But we're just going to YOLO this, so we're just going to modify them directly. So I'm going to say sudo vim etc pam.d, and let's start with password auth. If I kind of make this a bit larger so we can read it better, you want to scroll down to this auth sufficient pam unix.so null ok try first pass. So that particular line. And what we want to do is change that to requisite. So instead of sufficient, we want requisite, and I'll add another space so that it looks nice and pretty. And then we're going to add a new line, which is auth sufficient. Whoop. Got a little too aggressive there with the tab. And this is where we would specify the Duo module itself. And for most of these modules, notice that we're just referring to it by the file name. But for the Duo module, you have to kind of give it the full path a lot of the time. So it's kind of a good habit to be in, actually checking where the module is located and then giving PAM the full path. I already know where it's located, but you might want to check before you make any actual configuration changes. So auth sufficient, and in on Red Hat systems anyway, it's going to be under /lib64 security and pam_duo.so. And I'm going to practice what I preach and at least attempt to triple check everything. Everything looks okay. So that is step one. That's for our graphical protecting our graphical user interface logins, the next thing we want to do is kind of the same thing, but we want to do it for system auth. So this might be for, well, the best example is for sudo authentication for sudo users. So let's open that up. And we want to kind of make the same change here. So under auth sufficient, pamunix.so, null OK, try first pass, we will change this. Gotta press I for input mode or insert mode. So we're going to change this to requisite. And then we're going to add a line underneath yet again. And once again, it's going to be auth sufficient. And we will do /lib64 /security. And it's going to be pam_duo.so. All right, so that looks correct to me. So I'm gonna right quit. And the last thing I'll do, just to double check, is I'm actually going to cat both of those files out. And I'm gonna grep for the full path of the PAM_duo module, just to make sure that I typed it correctly. We should be seeing really two lines output here. /lib64 /security /pam_duo.so. Well, that's not promising. So we are catting them out into grep. Let's see, what did I do wrong? Oh, PAM_duo. There we go. And everything looks proper. I don't see any sort of difference between the lines. So, okay, I'm relatively confident that we didn't mess up PAM. All right, so we've got PAM configured. The next thing we should do is, if we are on a system that uses SELinux, we might have to change some booleans to allow different actions. And if we do a sudo git sebool -a, that will list out all the SE booleans, but there's like 10,000. So we can pipe that into grep and search for duo. And we have to type correctly. And we've got two SE booleans here. One of them is for SSH, and that's on by default. But for local logins, that's actually off by default. So I'm going to say sudo set sebool PAM_duo permit local login on. And we'll just do the same command. We'll search and see if it's changed. And it has now. So now it's set to on. The next step is we should probably configure PAM itself. So if we cat out etc, and when I say PAM, I'm not talking about PAM at all. I mean duo, the PAM_duo module. Anyway, so etc, we are going to print out the contents of etc duo pam_duo.conf. And that's not going to work without sudo. So in this configuration file, this is where you're going to plug in the various values that are given to you when you make the Unix application through the Duo web portal. So you have to enter your integration key, your secret key, and the host address. And what I recommend, or at least what I like to do, is I like to turn on push info, and I also like to turn on auto push, so that it doesn't like give you a choice of different ways to authenticate. It just pushes to your the app on your phone by default, which is just the most convenient way, in my opinion. So actually, if we do an ls again, I've already typed out my configuration file because I don't want to show you my secret key, sorry. But if we actually do like a tail-n2 of PAM_duo, oh, there's an extra line. So if we do a tail-n3 of this configuration file that I've typed out, I've got push info set to yes, I've got auto push set to yes, and the other lines you don't need to see. So I'm going to copy that over to /etc duo pam_duo.conf, neighbor with a motorcycle, great timing, and we're just going to copy that over. The last thing I want to show you before we maybe test this out is you might want to actually open up vsudo. So vsudo is going to, in vsudo, we can change the timeout for how often you have to authenticate when you're using sudo. So I'm not sure what the default is on Red Hat, but what you don't want is to have to constantly open your phone up, unlock your phone, and click the green button. So I like to, if I'm using two-factor authentication for sudo, I like to give it a longer grace period before you have to re-authenticate. So sudo vsudo, and what we can do is just add a line somewhere that looks good. Let's see, where would it make sense to add this? Let's just add it like right here. Why not? I don't think it really makes a difference. And the nice thing about vsudo is it will double check your syntax. So we'll say defaults timestamp timeout, and I'll give it like 25 minutes. I don't mind doing that every 25 minutes. Every 5 minutes is a different matter. So we will right quit, and it looks like it didn't throw any errors. So now we've got our sudo kind of a little bit relaxed as far as the timeout goes. We've got pamduo.conf set up. We've got pam itself set up. We've changed our SELinux boolean. So we should be good to go. Let's see. So if I do su Shane, I mean, I'm already logged in as Shane, but I'm just going to log in as Shane again. Have to enter my password. And it gives us this URL, and then the actual authentication is going to fail, but that's fine. We're expecting that. So we'll copy the link and head over to Firefox. And let me open this up. I'm going to paste and go. So we've got our enrollment. It's sort of a series of screens where you have to enter the information and define how you want Duo to behave. So I'll say start setup. I'm going to be using my mobile phone, which I've already installed the application on. Next. And I have to enter my phone number. So that's another bit of information that I'm sorry to say I'm not going to share with you. So I'm just going to take this off screen really quickly, and you can check out the documentation. So I'm entering my phone number. And I'm confirming my phone number and clicking continue. It's going to send me a 6-digit code to verify. And I'm going to enter that. Verify. Got a green check mark. Continue. And because I've already got everything set up, my Duo account as well as the application on my phone, it detects that I've already got the application installed. And I get the option of either choosing an authentication method when I attempt to log in, but the second option is automatically send this device a Duo push, and that's the one I want to select. So I will finish the enrollment, and if we bring the screen back down, the enrollment was successful. Hooray, we have some like confetti. It's very exciting stuff. So going back over to the console here, let's do the same thing. Let's try to log in as Shane. And I got an auto pushed notification. I have the option of approving or denying. I'm going to click approve. And it's logged me in. Cool. I'm going to exit out of that. I'm going to exit out of that. Now let's double check that it's working for sudo. Let's do a sudo ls of my own directory, my own home directory. Enter my password. Auto pushed a request. And it's telling me the command, which is kind of cool. So if you've got a system with a lot of users, you can, again, approve or deny based on what command they're attempting to run. So I will approve that because that's not a super dangerous command. And there's my sort of default directories that are made with any home, with any account, essentially. All right, last step, last thing for us to verify is Yeah, we'll close the tabs. Is this going to work for our graphical user interface logins? So I'm going to log out. Let's log back in. It sent a push notification, and I can approve it. There we go. So that is Duo, at least for local authentication. It works in a similar way for SSH authentication. But I just wanted to demonstrate that because I like the idea of two-factor authentication for logging into your operating system locally too. You can set it up for more than just Linux. I mean, it supports all the different distributions, maybe with a little bit of like variation in how much troubleshooting and configuration it'll take. It's widely supported in Unix and Linux, but also in Mac OS and Windows. So it's very, very cool. I like it a lot anyway. I like Duo a lot as a product. So hopefully that is useful for some folks, and you find it interesting, and good luck if you want to give it a shot. Be careful with your PAM configuration files, and I guess I'll end it there. Thanks for joining me.